Yes, that's better. Good afternoon, everyone. This is great to be here as we head towards the end of the day and Mama Shelter is beckoning. We're here to talk about an interesting theme. I think we all know the answer to it, but branded residences represent the intersection of luxury, home ownership, and elite hospitality. They are lifestyle assets that provide elevated levels of quality assurance and confidence through the association with leading brands, offering residents all the comforts of home, combined with the convenience of world-class services and amenities right on their doorsteps. In my first report, and I still produce this to this day, I came across a really interesting quote when I was researching, which goes as follows, which I think is really kind of sums it up. Experiential luxury is growing faster than personal goods luxury, and designer homes are a natural bridge between these two worlds. Is there any greater experiential product than one you actually live in? So I'd like to introduce my esteemed panel today, which is a refreshingly diverse panel because it comes from different perspectives that we're going to invite to give their opinions on the topic of the misconception myth, why branded residences aren't just hotel keys. And I'll firstly introduce Melissa Fazouk, who is the head of development for Amala at the Red Sea. Not just a developer, I would say a destination developer on the massive project. We've got Govind Mundra, who is the head of development for the Middle East and Africa for Wyndham, which is a very fast entering player in the branded residential space. And we've got Dean Main, who is the CEO and founder of Rhodium, which is a leading white label hospitality operator, which is expanding rapidly and going international. So let's move on. The first and most obvious element about this is what we've touched on earlier today, as to whether they are just hotels with keys. Well, quite clearly they're not, and the most obvious element of that is the hospitality versus the non-hospitality the brands. Now, when I started researching my report, just 10 years ago, when I published the first one, it was interesting because what limited data there was assembled, and in fact there were just seven non-hospitality brands in the marketplace. My latest compendium, which is now actually over 230 brands, not the printed version, the digital version, because there is a new brand out every week. It's now shown that that sector has grown by more than 10 times. There are over 75 non-hospitality brands in the market. So, with that in mind, and given the premise, of course, that branded residences were grounded on hospitality, that was buried in their DNA, it presents an interesting situation whereby how do the non-hospitalities do this? So Dean, starting with you, what would you say are the key differences between working with non-hospitality brands and hospitality brands?
Yeah, so thanks, lovely to be here. I think from a perspective of hospitality brands have been around for decades. They've led the industry, they know what they're doing, they've got the playbook. And over the last, I would say, few years, and as you've mentioned, we've been inundated with non-hospitality brands coming to the space. Dean, this is our brand, we want to come into the space, can you help us? And we've just been completely shocked by the amount of brands that want to come into the space, and we think it's an interesting time. I think for me, I'm a little nervous of how many brands want to attach themselves to the sector. You know, are they driven by the bottom line? Which, when a brand approaches me and very clearly it's about the bottom line, we don't really want to take them to market. But it's time that the list grows on the other side, so the hospitality, non-hospitality. And we are bringing some really, really exciting brands to the market. Either they've never done it before, or they've maybe done one scheme, realize they need a proper partner, and then they give us a call.
Yeah. Melissa, in terms of the Red Sea and what's going on, particularly in Amala and stuff, it's very high end. You launched with a number of hospitality brands. From our conversations, I know that you're looking at introducing non-branded, non-hospitality branded projects as well. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, sure. We launched Amala Residences last week. We have in our portfolio branded residences that are, some of them are keys and some of them are not. So that's a conversation maybe we'll have. We're working with Four Seasons, Rosewood, Six Senses, Equinox, Namos. All of these are coming with their branded residences to Amala. And with their branded residences, the services, as well as their access to the hotels that are next door. But they have their own communities. They are not within the hotel. They have individual communities for each of these branded residences. Then we have the collection, which is Amala Residences. So we have our own brand, Residences brand, that is series of different communities within Amala. The first one that we announced is Andar Club Residences, which is around the golf course. We have 150 residences around our golf course, 18-hole golf course, that will be part of our Amala branded residences. But they will be serviced. They will be serviced by our own hospitality group, but it's not attached to any of the other hotel brands.
And I would think, not time to get into it now, but differentiation of the types of product that you're offering across the resorts is going to be quite a key factor.
Definitely.
In playing that. That's for another time. The other obvious one is, of course, standalone. And we've talked about this. We've heard a lot of it talked about this morning, about the growth of standalone. And it's something I've been writing about for quite a long time. So in terms of that, a standalone product is definitely not a hotel with a key. It is a residence that offers a particular lifestyle. And what was interesting is when, again, going back to when I started researching for my reports, I remember talking to Dana Jacobson, as VP at Marriott, and saying, what do you think about standard? And indeed, some of the people in this room asked the same question. And it came back and it was kind of, this was, we'll do it, we'll look at it if the opportunity's right, but it's not a priority. This was 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Marriott had 9 projects at the time, and listening to and talking to them and having spoken to them since, they're looking at driving their standalone portfolio from currently 15% up to 25% of their entire global portfolio. And the other brands, of course, are following as well. So standalone is here to stay. We've heard it talked about significantly this morning, and we've seen the numbers that are underpinning that. From an operator's point of view, Govin, I'm really interested as to how you approach a project, that is standalone, how you would treat it as distinct from one of your more sort of traditional hotel hospitality offerings.
Thanks. So, for us, a standalone is relatively a new space which we have just entered. Historically, we have been doing a lot of hotel with sell and lease back, rental pool, where either it's franchise or managed. But we started our standalone journey, and particularly in UAE, because the whole RERA system allows that to happen. The rules and regulations is safe enough for us to feel comfortable that we can get into a standalone model where there's no hotel next to that building. And we started our journey almost a year back, where we looked at, okay, what are the current offerings in the market? What are the other brands doing? We had understanding of the real estate laws, but we were not an expert. So we got Tamimi and company to help us structure that from a legal point of view. And once we looked at it, then we said, okay, now it's a test case. Let's go and talk to a couple of developers. Luckily, in our case, the model which we came in terms of the fee structure, in terms of the structuring in line with the RERA, it was something which a lot of developers say that, oh, listen, we wanted this to happen. And they have been talking to a lot of other brands, but they were not getting that which we were able to do. 12 months now, We launched our first standalone residences under the Ramada Residence brand, which is our mid-scale, upper mid-scale segment in Jeddah in Dubai. And as I speak to you, we have 9 agreements under negotiation at this point of time, which will be launched between now and January in Dubai, in locations like JVC, JVT, Dubai Islands, Dubai South, and Marjan, RAK. So within RAK also, within the island, off the island. So for us, standalone is something new, but it took us a time to understand the landscape, legal challenges, and the structure which we are doing is also a bit different. When you don't have a hotel, how do you ensure that the brand standards are maintained? So what we have done in our case, we say that yes, there is a GOP manager as per the RERA, which is required to be in Dubai and Ras Al Khaimah, but we will have a skeletal team reporting into us directly who are responsible to ensure that the brand standards are delivered to the brand which we are talking. So there are dedicated people from our reporting into our managed team who will be there at the hotel to ensure those brand standards are delivered. And that is how we are differentiating the product which we have in the market now.
Sure. And that's from the inside looking out. For the other way around, how would you say that developers who are building standalone, do they expect anything different in terms of support that you and your team give?
So very interesting, because a lot of developers we are currently working with are getting into this industry for the first time on the branded side. They have done a lot of non-branded stuff, and for them, every GFA which you take to service areas or to amenities, it's one room less for them to sell. So when you get into the discussion early and you say, okay, listen, these are must-haves and these are good-to-haves, both in terms of facilities, both in terms of amenities, this is minimum which you need to do, this is what is expected. We have seen that rational ones understand that you cannot maximize all the sell areas and there's no areas to support, because this is not a non-branded, it's a lifestyle product, and for you to deliver those services you need spaces and all of that. In our case, we have been lucky that we have been able to get developers and owners who understand what we are trying to do, and we have been successful in getting them on board to allow us to do all of that.
And you, Dean, because obviously you operate a lot of very high-end properties, particularly in central London and so on. Have you noticed any differences in the support that developers of standalone expect?
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I actually am a developer. I founded Rhodium 16 years ago because I was fed up of building something beautiful and then passing it on to a third party, local management company who didn't do a great job. So 16 years ago, we launched our first building that wasn't effectively ours for a developer. And you're right, the brands at that point weren't interested unless there was a hotel attached. So we've spent 16 years effectively perfecting the standalone, and that's all we do. We are the preeminent player for standalone. The brands are now coming into the space completely, and we've seen a massive shift in the last 5 to 7 years for standalone. But what I find interesting is the brands that said no, would never do standalone are now doing it. They're seeing the benefits. But I actually don't think that the conventional brands are set up properly for the management and operations of standalone residential. If you look at the jurisdictions, the challenges, we spoke earlier about the HOAs, how difficult they are, the servicing, the legislation, the local laws. I don't think a lot of those players are set up. So, without mentioning names, a lot of the hospitality brands call me and they said, can you help us? Can you operate under a white label? So the challenge for us as a business is saying, okay, we want to work with brands. We don't want to do bit part. So we want to work with exclusive relationships going forward. But it's a very exciting space. But I'm nervous because a lot of the non-hospitality brands are coming into the space. They don't have the playbook. They don't have the know-how. And I'm seeing a lot of brands trying to license their name on top of a building and praying it works out. And I feel in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a lot of those brands fall off. I don't think they're going to exist.
But as you said, you're preeminent standalone specialist. I gather you've got an announcement to make regarding moving towards the hospitality area.
Yeah, so we've got some really special brands we work with, and the ink is still dry, but I'm pleased to announce that we've just signed a global deal with Bugatti, the automotive brand outside of the UAE, to effectively operate for them globally. They've got big plans. the preeminent automotive brand in terms of luxury and what they're doing, and they've got some really exciting brands. And for me, the reason we said yes to Bugatti and not the other brands that approached us prior is because they appreciate that they want a sustainable business model, which means that they can roll out globally very selectively, but ensure that the service elements, when buyers buy and they move in, the way they're serviced, the back of house, the front of house is meticulous. In the same way they build their cars, they want the experience to be above and beyond. And that is difficult to do, even for us. I mean, we're not perfect. As an operator, it's challenging. But the brands that are going to survive are the brands that come with an operational platform.
And Melissa, standalone in any of your Red Sea projects, which are very much hospitality-led, can you see a time when you might start selling standalone residences to investors, buyers?
Yes, definitely. We started already. We have our standalone projects, but they are being operated with our own hospitality group, Red Sea Global Hospitality. And yes, we've started already. We're selling.
Okay. We'll watch
We're
this
very
space.
excited about it too.
There's a lot to watch there anyway.
I just wanted to add to the point which he was mentioning that, a lot of hotel brands may not know the local regulations and all of that. And that's why, at least at our end, what our focus is on the hospitality side of service to the unit owners. And what we are doing, particularly in UAE, and we are working with Strive. Some of my friends are out there and they have been in this market for 15, 20 years. They run a number of branded portfolio and they know the landscape well. So it's also important that, to understand and agree that there are areas which you don't know, but you partner with the right partners who knows that, and then that's the value which you give to a developer, and that's how we are going.
Yeah, I think one of the things about standalone is, by definition, any non-hospitality brand is going to be a standalone residence. And one of the things, and again we've heard about this touched on this morning, is the longevity of the service and the quality of the service that is delivered once the developer's departed. And in a standalone, that becomes a lot tougher to do. I know, Dean, this is something you're quite passionate about. We've talked about a lot before, about the maintaining the quality and the standards, and it's no easy trick. I think we're going to sort of see a few of these projects trip over in due course.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to see that now. I don't want to name specific projects, but if you look at the Miami market, there are a number of standalone residential schemes that are finished, built, operators in, and under automotive brands, these developments are really suffering. I've heard that some of them are now moved to their fourth management company.
Yeah, I've heard.
Buyers are shocked and surprised that the levels of luxury that they were sold within this particular scheme haven't been delivered. So what are you seeing? You're seeing a drop in values for that scheme and the units. You're seeing the highest resales for a new build block, and it's effectively tarnishing the reputation of not only the developer, but it's taking the brand and ruining the brand equity. And this is actually why there's a reason Hermes, Chanel have not come into the space. If you said to me, what's your magic brand that you'd like to take, it would be one of those two. They're looking and think, why would we do this? Why would we risk, if there's a 0.5% chance that we're going to risk our brand to do this? And I think it's important that whilst you're never going to get it 100% right, if you come to a project with the right time, the right team, and your intention is not just bottom line profit, but to really deliver something special, you will survive. But it's challenging for us. My first ever scheme 16 years ago, I thought, this is easy. We'll just hire everyone from the hotel next door, and it will work out. But that was actually one of the biggest mistakes you made, because the hotel staff, they don't want to work in a residential building that's 50% occupied in the year. No one tips properly. So there's so many misconceptions, and it's really important that over the time we've honed in on what works, what doesn't. And I'm so excited about this industry. And we are so well positioned. But standalone branded residences, whether you're hospitality or non-hospitality, poses a lot of challenges.
Yeah, and I think that there's challenges. I mean, this really is the underbelly of things that are going to perhaps start going wrong. We've talked about Miami before, and it's not really been publicized, but it is an issue. And if you paid millions of dollars, you expect the doorman to know who you are when you walk through the door rather than see a new face every 5 minutes. And this brings me to the next point, which is about the longevity of this between why hotels and residences are a different proposition. With a hotel, it's long-term ownership. Sorry, I beg your pardon. With the residence, it's long-term ownership versus hotel, which is a short-term stay. And that is a completely different proposition and a way of packaging. And in fact, it's essential to maintain a high consistency level and consistent level of service over an extended period, and provide owners with the confidence that actually they're in the safe hands for the long haul. And I spoke to some of you in the room when I was interviewing some of the vice presidents of developments at the big brands about this, representing a total of 55 brands, I think, about what is this issue? And one of the key findings that came back, and I quote one of the responses, is that developers need to consider the long-term proposition and contemplate the operating model very carefully. And this is absolutely right. But in your experience, asking the panel, how do homeowners' expectations and their requirements differ from those of a short-term transient hotel guest? Melissa?
Maybe I'll answer this differently, because we have products that are optional. We have products that are mandatory. So then, with that, where the short-term guest is based on the owner's choice. If they would like that, they put that their product into the pool, and from that perspective, and also Amala is an integrated community. There's resorts, there are residences. We have our own residential brands as Amala Residences that are standalone, but it's part of a community.
Sure.
It's an integrated community around wellness, and the issue with the quality, it's always not only at the architecture and what we are providing within the design of these places, or how it's integrated into landscape. It's also operationally how we need to keep the quality at a certain level that is controlled. So whether it's a short-term stay or a long-term stay, it feels like it's an extended community. And that's how we're hoping to, once we open in the coming months, that continue keeping the quality in our operation.
Yeah, we talked about this, a factor which comes back as we were discussing about branded residence really being a sort of a community, a modern-day village, a vertical village, or call it what you will. But Govind, from an operator's point of view, you work with both, the hotel and that side. In terms of educating or deciding how you're going to define the offer for the end user, as opposed to on the hotel side, as opposed to on onto the residential side, how do you approach that when you're working with a developer?
So, what I've realized that, when, as you rightly said, hotel is a short-term, one-time use, you'll take holidays 2-3 times a year, and you are okay to indulge. But when you are buying an asset, a real estate asset, it's a long-term investment. One of the most important questions which we have seen, even the developers plus the unit buyer ask when they're looking at buying this, okay, what is my service charges? Because that he need to pay month on month. He wants the amenities, but at a cost which is affordable to his pocket. And that is a great balance to have, and not that easy. And that's why working with professionals who has done this enough number of times, who have experience of running branded residences and then costing it out much in advance, even during the sale and purchase stage, helps the end user expectation to be set from day one. And that is what, luckily in Dubai, the whole transparency, the sales process is so transparent that all of that is spelled out. And we hope that most of the project which we are launching now, the unit owners will have all these details in their hand before even they decide to go ahead or not.
Right. Well, as a marketing specialist and creating the narrative, I can tell you it is so important to make sure everything is defined and scoped out, so everybody knows exactly what there is. Apparently, we've got a bit more time, so we'll take some questions. So, a couple of other things I was going to talk. Govin, particularly because I know I worked with the Wyndham senior team. I was lucky to help on the strategy development.
Thanks for that. It helped me too.
With regards to the mid-scale, upscale opportunity, I've been a long supporter of that idea, and I know Wyndham is making great advances in this. Do you want to comment on that in terms of this topic?
No, 100%. When we started this journey a year and a half back, we looked at all the projects which has been launched in last 3, 4, 5 years, and most of them were in ultra luxury or uber luxury space. Very big units, very elaborate amenities, but then all of these were going into multi-million AED units, and I'm sure that there is enough buyer for that space. But based on our understanding of the market, and Wyndham is largely a mid-scale, upscale brand, we understand that segment well, and we see there is a significant amount of young and upwardly mobile population who wants that lifestyle, who wants an association with a brand because they travel and they like that brand. In our case, we have some amazing lifestyle brands and hotel brands which is known for consistent service. If we are able to offer that as a residential product, we inherently believe that there will be takers. And this is at the concept stage where we didn't define. But eventually we ended up defining some of our hotel brands into residential brands. So we have Ramada Residences, we have Wyndham Residences, we have Wyndham Grand Residences. And as I mentioned, number of deals which is in the making and will be announced in next 5 to 6 weeks' time. A lot of them are Wyndham Residence, which sits in the upscale segment. In terms of sales price, most of this will be between 1.5 million to 3 million AED. So it's still affordable, but lifestyle, amenities, and great locations is something which we thought that the buyers in that segment will appreciate, and we are getting the same feedback from market, and that's why within, I think, 8-9 months of our launching that the standalone concept in this market, we are sitting with almost 8-10 projects. So that's at least proof of concept from there. That's what we are getting validation from the market.
Yeah, I think the location thing is interesting. The point is that in the last 10 years, we've seen the whole industry change and evolve. But more particularly, it's about the awareness. And I can remember when I started interviewing people, even in the industry, about branded residences and their things, I would say 8 out of 10 of them, I had to explain what they were. That's just 10, 12 years ago. So things have moved on, but the democratization of luxury, if you like. Luxury is a relative thing to different people, but because the concept is now so proven in terms of why this is successful, and the model is successful, let's not forget, because people are buying it. They wouldn't just take it because they're building them. These are in demand, and that's what's driving this. So it stands to reason that a bigger proportion of the audience, of the buying audience out there, is of course in the mid-scale and upscale opportunity, because they've got. It doesn't mean you have to have as much marble and gold taps. It doesn't mean you have to be right in the central. We're talking about secondary and tertiary locations, but they can still benefit from the same lifestyle element. So I would confidently predict that we're going to see this whole sector start to explode a lot more as we see more and more. Now, if you think about the figures we saw earlier, which were just focused on the luxury element and how dominant that is, just imagine what the mid-scale and upscale, which is a much bigger market, is likely to be able to deliver in terms of growth to this sector. So it is a heck of an exciting place to be. I think we're all really privileged to be there. But before I finish, I thought I'd poke the bear a little bit with a challenging thing. Last year, when we sat in this room, I don't know how many of you were here, but the topic came up of the benefits of luxury hospitality brands versus non-hospitality brands, and we've heard George Azar earlier today say his view on them. Last year we heard a very vocal panel actually questioning the value of those brands and so on. Branded Residences was built on hospitality, and we know what the challenges are, particularly with regard to the management and the operations of that to deliver the longevity that we've talked about as well. But assuming these things get right, I mean, do you think in the long term that the branded residential space is going to be dominated, or say 50-50 between hospitality brands and non-hospitality?
Is this for me?
Brands? Well, I'm looking at all of you really, because it's it's kind of an open question. But where's this going to go? When I look at some of the brands, I mean, in the brand compendium that I compiled, which, as Barry kindly said, was a labour of love, I think yes, it really was. But looking at the number of brands, and as I said, there's about 230 or plus every week. I'm adding a new one into the digital copy. By the way, they're all free on my website if you're interested. But to see when you've got certain brands in there, like which are driven around cartoon characters and so on, you've got to wonder what the value add is. So in terms of what we're looking at here, it's very exciting and it's sure as hell diverse. But where's this going to go? What do you think?
So look, just coming on to your point in terms of, for me, it's about the journey. So a buyer looking to buy in standalone gets sucked into the incredible marketing of some of these schemes, promising the world, selling a lifestyle, selling a vision. I've been sucked in sometimes, and I've bought things off the back of off-plan marketing. The challenge is a buyer spends $20, $30, $40 million on a luxury apartment and then moves in. And then they're like, okay, well, you have to understand the demands and the expectations are incredibly high. You're talking to a buyer that probably owns 8 other apartments or homes or villas globally, and you've sold them on a brand, whether it's a hospitality brand or a non-hospitality brand, and they have expectations. It's completely different to a hotel. They're there. They're going to be there. Their focus is on security, discretion, continuity of service, not seeing an HOA budget, do that. And I think coming back to what I was saying before, the long term for me is there are established hospitality brands that have been around for decades. They're not going anywhere. They are trusted. They're getting better. They understand the market. They understand their buyer. The non-hospitality brands coming into the space, I was chuckling before. We get phone calls from brands. I just like, I can't believe you're even thinking of this. You mentioned cartoon characters. We've had some incredibly funny conversations. It's just not going to work. And especially football clubs have approached me and said, look, Chelsea Residences, DeMac, we want to come into the space. It's just not sustainable. You might be able to do that in Dubai, but are you going to be able to do that in London or Madrid? So I think what we're going to see, the future for me is the hospitality brands are going to be the center stage. The non-hospitality brands, your 200 or so list, is going to shrink year on year as buyers and developers trust them less because they're not delivering the promised of what they said they would do, because it's focused on marketing. The day-to-day living and the experience of the buyer is going to be completely different to what was sold. And that's being negative. On the positive side, there are incredible brands that are coming into the space, and their foremost thing they're focusing on is getting the architecture, the interior design, but what's the service going to be? Who is actually going to be operating this building? I want to know, because on project 2 or 3 or 4 that I've bought before, I've had these issues, I've had snagging, I've had defects, the staff keep changing, I've been called the wrong name, my HOA bill is wrong, I can go on and on. So they are more sophisticated now. Buyers are more aware of the challenges that these brands face and are getting less sucked in to ask these questions. And I think that you'll see a shrink in the number of non-hospitality brands coming in. But we're super excited, and we keep bringing new brands to the market But again, the focus has to be on sustainability. Can I do this in Dubai, but can I do it in London?
Yeah, it is sustainability, but I mean, just before we move on, but you know, brands come and go out of favor, and things change. And if you are an owner in a residence and you've signed up to say a fashion brand, you know, those fashions change, and at some point, what happens? Does the brand come in and say, actually, this is our old look, we've changed to, you know, we're now doing pink, you've got to repaint the walls? I mean, how's that going to work?
I don't think any of these brands are thinking that far ahead. I think they're signing.
I agree.
No, I agree. I mean, you know, we talked about a typical licensing deal is 20 to 30 years. And I don't think any of these brands are thinking, well, what happens if our color model, our palettes change? I don't think they're looking that far ahead. But I think the buyers are, because they are investing a huge amount of money. They know they're paying a premium. And if the brand or the, you know, whatever the brand is attached to that flat or resident changes or diminishes, that affects their investment value. And that's why people are quite nervous about, you know, actually pulling the trigger and buying.
So I'll just add an experience here. You know, most developers who come to talk to us obviously go out and talk to other brands. And in many of the cases, when you go and you met a developer who have met some of the fashion brands or automobile brands, and then you go and say, okay, let me show the plans, and okay, where is the back of house? How is this happening? It's like, why are you asking this question? None of the other brand asked this question. So the question most of the other brands, okay, where will my logo go? In the lobby, I need a logo there. In the swimming pool, I need a logo there. But it's a building which need to be serviced. Where is the garbage going out? You know, how the staff is going to come. You want a nice concierge, but where is the back of house for that? All of that, because we are a hotel company, we are trained for that. The first thing which we look at floor plans are those areas. Yes, for us, branding and nice graphics and all of that is important. But if the basics are not sorted out, and that's a number of discussion I go into, and luckily the set of developers we are currently working with, they understand when you explain it with logic that you need this space, otherwise it's not going to work, or you are not able to deliver the service you want to. And we have been successful in getting those areas which we need to deliver those services.
Yeah, sure. And Melissa, just as a final word, I don't know how we're getting on, but I mean, you must have been approached by every brand on the planet to sift through them and so on. Do you get a sense pretty quickly of the ones that are going to resonate with your audiences and come up with a short list?
Definitely. Right now, when we're talking to our customers, our buyers, first of all, they go with established brands because they know what it brings. It brings level of quality. It brings consistency. They know what kind of service they will get it. And on top of it, it's the style of that brand, is whether it suits them or not. Because if you look at different brands today, if you look at Four Seasons, it's totally different style than the Rosewood or Six Senses. They're all coming with different styles. But the buyers are always looking for that they also know that the brand brings the like-minded people together, right? And it creates that community. So they know that the next door neighbor, if it is a buyer that is going to live there, or it is their primary home or secondary home, that's my neighbor. I know that my community will be like-minded people like me. That's why the brands are bringing additional value for us for sales, for sure. But if it is the right brand, if it is the wrong brand, and then it doesn't add much of a value other than having some brand guidelines on the look and feel. And from there, as a developer, it's our role and goal to make sure that that quality is being kept throughout the years. Yeah. And that's our promise to our buyers. So for our buyers, they don't just buy a brand, they buy a Red Sea global product that is going to be continuous. Sustainability will be part of it in our offer. So I think that's also important. It's not just the brand, it's where you're buying, location, developer, all of that adds a lot of value to it.
Well, I'm told that we've done our fill-in slot now, that everyone seems to have finished. So that just leaves me to thank my panelists, who I think have rather eloquently touched on a number of issues. I hope that was interesting. We could have talked about this, and there are so many different aspects to this, but I certainly hope you got something out of this. Also, to thank the guys at the bench for organising really what is an excellent event with Accor and so on. And finally, to thank you for listening very much.